Right now it's 5:45. Radio confession time. Let's go live to the saloon bar of one of the UK's finest pubs, where Sister Susie is in charge as ever. Just checking in. Marks out of 10
Hello.
for the show.
Always 10.
Always 10.
Okay, that's a very good thing.
Always top.
It's our first drinks trolley of the week. Thank you, David Jacobs. And what are you selecting for us today?
Well, just in case people have overindulged at the weekends, I thought something nice and refreshing. So, if you're feeling on the cheaper side, maybe an orange and soda, but I quite like a lemonata, which is like a lemony drink. Very tasty.
Is that from the San Pellegrino people?
It is, yeah. Lovely.
They are very good. They are very good. Also, I like a lime soda. Just lime cordial and fizzy water.
And yes, tasty.
Very good. That's just my suggestion. It's not. I noticed it's not on the drinks trolley.
No.
But there you go. I also noticed that Matt was not impressed.
Rolling his eyes.
Today's confession comes from Colin. First of the week, Colin. Thank you. You get today's smart speaker. Simon and team. I have a confession that I must get off my chest. It has caused me many, many sleepless nights over the years, mainly due to the fact that it still makes me laugh. Prank calls are, in my opinion, never funny. In fact, pranks are usually very unfunny and only perpetrated by larger-than-life people or personalities, in inverted commas,
Characters.
who are nightmares
Wacky.
to be spending any time with at all. You never choose to be with one on holiday. You never choose to be with one at work.
Yep.
You never choose to be married to one.
Yep.
Nightmare.
Yep.
Anyway, I think Colin's getting carried away. What happens in this story is not like that at all. You see, I didn't make a call. I received a call. Many years ago, before the days of caller ID or the redial button on phones, or even the mobile phone, I was at home on a day off when my phone rang with what was obviously a wrong number. I answered the phone with a cheery, "Hello," and I was answered by a young lady saying the following words, which I remember word for word. "Hi, love, it's me. Just about to leave work. There's a chicken in the fridge. Could you put it in the oven? The instructions are on the label. Do some potatoes and veg. I'll be home by the time it's cooked. We need to eat before we go out." I said, "Oh, okay then."
Yeah. Fine.
Well,
She then added, rather threateningly I thought, "Make sure you do it this time."
Oh.
"Well, of course," I said, realizing that I must sound at least something like her other half. So I added, I don't know what happened last time. I just, forgot about everything. What with, and everything." Then she added, "I do know. Love you. See you soon." And I replied, "Okay, see you soon. Love you too. I'll be wearing your favourite pyjamas," and hung up.
excellent.
Now, all evening I was laughing to myself, thinking, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when she gets home and he wasn't wearing her or his favourite pyjamas. Because when you think about it, I'll be wearing your favourite pyjamas could mean he was going to be wearing her
Perfect.
pyjamas.
Could be.
Or
Yeah.
he could just be wearing the pyjamas
I don't see
that
what
she likes.
There's not much of an attraction in him wearing her favourite pyjamas, though, is there?
Each to their own.
I mean, she's
Yeah,
not going to be
exactly.
enticed back in there, is she?
You never know.
I mean, maybe.
Might be.
You don't know.
Not going to judge.
Okay, I feel as though we're moving into awkward territory.
I say.
Anyway, obviously there was no way that she could find out the number that she had called because there was no caller ID display or redial. I confess that I often wonder what happened to the young man when she got home. Did he actually have dinner ready off his own bat, or was this the final straw in their relationship? Because he certainly wasn't wearing her favourite pyjamas. On the other hand, if he can't follow sensible instructions, maybe their love was doomed anyway. And I think that's only right, therefore, that I issue a public apology via Greatest Hits Radio to the young lady and the man for any upset it caused. I'm also seeking and begging, in fact, for forgiveness from you and the team. Many thanks from Colin. Well, you see, that's interesting because I tend to agree with Colin about pranks. I know Matt does as well.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So he has received a wrong call, a wrong number call, and has off his own bat decided to extemporise, do a bit of comedy there. Sister Susie, how do you react to Colin's wheeze?
Colin, I really don't know what to do with this because, yes, you didn't ring her, and I feel like she should have noticed that it wasn't her other half on the phone, but there was definitely a point where you could have jumped in and instead of saying, oh, of course I'll get the dinner on, you could have said, oh, sorry, love, I think you got the wrong number. And because you didn't do that, I don't think I can forgive you.
I mean, he's making the most of an interesting situation. And also, shouldn't she know what her other half sounds like? She's living with the guy.
You'd have thought so.
Yeah.
Anyway, Matthew, brother
I'm
from another
going to
country.
forgive, and here's why. I had something very similar happen to me. I had, and I'm not going to name them for obvious reasons, the wife of a rather famous TV presenter once rang me and had a go at me for not going to pick up his father. She clearly thought she was ringing the TV presenter's brother. And it turns out my number is very close to his in her phone. But she had to the point where I thought I'd agreed to go and pick up this guy's father.
Is it Noel Edmonds?
It's not Noel Edmonds. And so, this guy, it can happen to anyone because you completely take it. I was completely flummoxed for about 2 minutes and I realised, oh wait, she didn't mean to call me. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Okay, so split studio as ever. It's entirely down to you, the people's verdict. Do you forgive, yes or no? 61054, start your message with Simon. Merely moments ago, we heard from Colin on tonight's confession, who intercepted a rogue call with style and wit and suggested that someone need to wear someone else's pyjamas. The people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
Yes, Janice in Birmingham says forgiven. Definitely the kind of thing I'd have done if I'd received that call. The favourite pyjamas line had me chuckling. Jess says no harm done. Really don't understand how the lady didn't recognise that it wasn't her husband on the phone. I don't forgive the lady, but I definitely forgive Colin. And finally, Vicky in Northampton says forgiven. We used to have an old lady who would ring us weekly asking for Claire. We would patiently explain she had the wrong number and every time go through what number she thought she dialed. There was many a time I wondered if I shouldn't just pretend to be Claire and wing it.
Well, maybe that's inspired a confession in your mind. Maybe you've remembered something. Well, now is the time to send it in. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. It's Toto, it's 5:46, so it's confession time. Live to the saloon bar of the UK's leading pub, where we'll find Sister Susie slaving over a pint of Guinness.
Oh, you will indeed.
Or a cup of tea, probably more likely.
Yeah.
How's the show going so far? What is your verdict?
Oh, excellent, I think.
And thank you very much for that. And
Oh, it's the drinks trolley.
Drinks trolley.
David Jacobs bringing around the drinks trolley again. Check it, David. What have you? What are you selecting for us?
Well, I've gone for a nice sparkling cider today, and actually takes its inspiration from maybe an old confession we had. It's a Tam O'Shanter, it's called, by Pilton Cider, and it's vanilla and spiced and caramel flavours. Very tasty.
All right.
Yeah.
4.5%, not too strong.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. That's from our drinks trolley selection. Today's confession comes from Rory, who sends this in. Now, I'd say this is a little bit of an uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Yes, I think so.
Oh dear.
Oh,
Simon
good.
and team, I seek forgiveness for an incident that occurred in the 1980s. A time, I think this is early 80s, time of no mobile phones, no Facebook, no Twitter, or any other social media platform. We haven't even heard of the phrase social media platform. In fact, back in the 1980s, not everyone had a telephone in their house even. Also, it was a time when smoking was commonplace in public buildings and pubs. Though obviously, when we look back on it now, we realise that was a really daft and stupid thing to do. Pubs closed at 10:30. Some had an extension to 11 o'clock Friday and Saturday nights. As a young man in my 20s, the usual Friday night ritual was to meet the lads in a pub, normally one that served a good pint of real ale. Then, after closing time, onto a nightclub for a few more pints and hopefully meet some girls. One Friday night, after a number of pints, we ventured off to a tobacco smoke-filled nightclub where I started to chat to a girl, asked for her phone number, but alas, her house didn't have a telephone installed. So I managed to get her address and agreed to pick her up the following Monday night at 8 p.m.
Okay.
When I checked the address in the local A to Z, the paper version, now that people were using
Yeah.
in those days,
Wow.
I found she lived on a housing estate that, shall we say, had a bit of a reputation. It was the rough end of town. It was the wrong side of the tracks. It caused concern. But as she didn't have a telephone, we couldn't make alternative arrangements. And also, Father Simon, she was a fabulous woman, extremely smart and quite stunning. So at the appointed hour, I picked the young lady up. You can't judge someone by where they live, now can you?
No.
This would be entirely wrong. I've met many rotters who live in so-called nice houses. So I was being open-minded and tolerant and thoroughly modern.
Yeah, you were.
I hope you're impressed.
Well, yeah.
I drove to a pub. I knew that would be less busy than the more popular ones to allow for a decent conversation and less tobacco smoke. I got both. There's a lot of smoking.
There is.
I got both of us a drink and sat down in a corner hoping I'd met the woman of my dreams. She looked stunning. My heart was beating fast. She was dressed elegantly. She smelt amazing. We discussed international politics and the latest news from worlds of fashion and politics.
Wow.
We agreed on so much, Father Simon. This was going really well. And then she asked politely if I minded if she smoked, which wasn't a problem, really. Smoking was commonplace in those days. She'd probably have an elegant menthol ciggy or something, or maybe a cigarette holder. She reached into her handbag, pulled out a tobacco pouch. Oh, okay, she smokes roll-ups. Well, let's see how this goes. And then the pouch was followed by a pipe.
Wow.
That's right.
Good work.
A pipe.
Good work.
Black mouthpiece, wooden stem and bowl, your classic pipe. Well, I mean, where to go from there? She started to fill the pipe bowl with tobacco. She lit up the pipe, took several puffs on the stem, and a great cloud of smoke engulfed us both. I'd never seen such a thing, Father Simon. People in the pub started to notice the great cloud and the young lady with a pipe in her mouth looking in our direction. Most of them were straining to keep a straight face. Others were not so polite. There is, of course, no reason why she shouldn't smoke a pipe, but I was still in my early 80s mode, says Rory, shocked. And this is where I have to confess. I said I needed to use the toilet, but to my shame, walked past the toilets, out into the car park, and drove away.
Oh, my.
I know it's a terrible thing. That's the point of the confession, isn't it, really? If there were no terrible things, there'd be nothing to say.
Yes.
Please God have forgiveness for leaving this beautiful woman in an ungentlemanly manner. As a young man, I found the experience embarrassing. Whenever I see a pipe, I'm reminded of that night. I also realise now that smoking of any kind is a fool's game and is never justified.
Yes. Correct.
I don't know. Why is that? Well, it's just one of those things that you have to say. Member of the Royal Shakespeare Company.
It's legal.
Anyway, Sister Susie, what do you say to Rory?
Oh, Rory, first of all, I'm glad that there's no smoking inside anymore, because it just, everyone stunk and it was horrible, and I'm glad that that doesn't happen in my pub anymore. However, I cannot forgive you for leaving that poor woman in the pub. Like, how is she going to get home? You drove her there. How is she going to get home? You abandoned her. And also, just because she smoked a pipe now, surely that isn't a reason alone. You said you got on perfectly. She could have been the woman of your dreams, and you just left her there. No forgiveness
With
from
us and
me.
Bruno. It's the only pipe I can.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Brother from another guy.
Well, I mean, I think we can all agree it was a pretty cowardly way out for Rory here, and not exactly covered him in glory. But I am going to forgive, and here's the reason why: is clearly she was too good for him, and so therefore, actually, she dodged a bullet. She could have ended up with Rory, and thankfully didn't, because he's a little bit of a yellow belly, and so therefore I forgive, because she comes out of it better. Bit contrived,
very contrived.
But always forgive.
All right, okay. People's verdict, please. Do you forgive Rory? Yes or no? The people's verdict is due here. 61054 on the text. Start your message with Simon. A while back, we had a confession from Rory, who was going out with, well, potentially going out with a pipe-smoking beauty. Anyway, and he just couldn't cope with that, so he just drove off. People's verdict is in. Here we go.
Yeah, not a lot of forgiveness tonight.
No.
Gemma in Birmingham says, unforgiven. Standing someone up on a date is so rude. Absolutely no excuse. Tommy in North Yorkshire says, unforgiven. The fact she smoked a pipe, I think, makes her a more interesting and quirky lady. Vicky in Northampton says, I agree with Matt. What an appalling way to behave. The young lady in question had a very lucky escape. Your poor behaviour actually benefited the lady in question, because she didn't have have to suffer your selfish, misogynist self, and probably went on to have a very happy life with someone genuinely open-minded, intellectual and interesting. But nevertheless, I cannot forgive the downright callousness of your conduct.
But she agrees with that.
Yeah. Obviously.
Okay, so your confession, please. Maybe it involves pipe smokers, maybe it involves pubs, maybe it involves first dates, whatever it is. If we use it, you get a smart speaker. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. This is Greatest Hits Radio. It's drive time. It's confession time. We go live to the Dog and Duck in the Saloon Bar, where Sister Susie is judging the show and sorting out the music. How are we doing so far? Marks out of 10 for the show.
10.
10 out of 10, which is always a regular. And here comes the drinks trolley.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David. Yeah.
David Jacobs still working. What are you choosing from the drinks trolley for us today?
Well, it's a nice warm one today because it's been quite cold here. So I've gone with a hot chocolate with extra cream on the top and some marshmallows because it was just needed today.
All right.
So it's very tasty.
That's a pudding, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but also liquid, so counts as a drink.
It counts, definitely.
It does count as a drink.
Okay, so today's confession comes from Budgie. Thank you, Budgie, for sending in tonight's tale. Father Simon, Sister Susie, brother from another gutter. I think it's about time I confessed to a crime in the early 1990s. I'll set the scene. Me and my now wife and our young son, probably about 4 or 5 at the time, lived in a flat 2 doors above my wife's sister and her boyfriend, who's my best friend, Larry. Larry and I like to partake in a few beers down our local, as you do, says Budgie. Now, this pub was a mixture of Irish and English, us being on the English side. There was never any trouble and everyone got on fine. England-Ireland matches split the pub in 2 halves, with the banter making a great day out. From memory, always seemed to be a draw.
Yeah.
Just made things easier. Well, come bank holiday, and this pub would always do a great day, with entertainment for the kids and everything, food and obviously lots of beer. So bank holiday was approaching, but the girls decided instead of going to the pub as normal, they would like a day out with the kids at the zoo. Now, my wife's sister has had a young one as well, and normally me and Larry would have agreed. But this bank holiday was different because our pub was putting on a 5-a-side match. It was the English against the Irish. We couldn't miss this. So how could we get out of going to the zoo without causing arguments all round? This was when I had a very, very great idea, in my opinion. I was, and still am, a lorry driver. We never worked bank holidays unless there was an important job. So, as I think you might have guessed, I told my now wife that I had to work. Very important job. Very important contract. Very important customers. Lorries had to be driven. This was important work. You don't want to say no. I said it in that tone of voice. I also said, I asked Larry if he wanted to come along for the ride, which of course you could do in those days, but you can't now. Anyway, Father Simon, the girlfriends fell for it. And it even provided us with sandwiches and crisps on our hard day of driving / playing football. So we left the flats at 6 o'clock in the morning, sandwiches in hand, then straight down another friend's house, whose mum had made us a lovely breakfast. So we had a few drinks there, and then the match kicked off. I've skipped a bit here.
Yes.
The match kicked off, and I was flying in with the tackles. But don't worry, Father Simon, the Irish were a tough bunch. It was a great day. Can't remember who won.
No.
Can't remember much about the game, to be honest. But we saw the day out whilst they're playing football. Eventually going home to our lovely girlfriends, who weren't surprised that we were a little bit tipsy, because we told them that we'd finished our essential driving jobs early, and then we parked up and went straight to the pub.
Okay.
But this is not what I need forgiveness for.
Right.
When I woke in the morning, my dad was picking me up for work, but I was in absolute agony with my legs. They were black from the knee to the ankle. I managed to get out of the flat just about and into my dad's car. I think I must have been tackling a little too hard in my merry state. I got to work, but I couldn't do anything. So I went to hospital for an x-ray. Turned out I had badly fractured my left leg and badly bruised my right leg. How could I explain this to my wife, as she thought I was driving the lorry and not playing football against the Irish? So from then to this very day, she thinks I had an accident at work. I said, I fell off the lorry.
I fell off the lorry.
Yeah. The distributor and the cylinder block damaged the push rod, and as a result, the timing chain, it was an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
It was all bulging and everything. As a result, I lost my balance, and I fell very awkwardly. I will always have a reminder of this, Father Simon, as I still have what looks like a bruise on my left leg. Plus, I was off work for 6 weeks. So I think I've paid my penance, even if my wife might think differently.
Yes.
Because, as I mentioned, she doesn't know anything about this until about now. Come to think of it, neither does Larry's wife.
No.
Who was obviously involved in this story. P.S. My girlfriend and I got married in the end. It's our 30th anniversary next year. My friend also married my wife's sister, all still together, plenty more kids, and grandkids have since arrived, which is a very joyful thing. However, do we get forgiveness for Budgie for this tale of misleading 2 wives just so you can play football for the pub? Sister Susie, it is for the pub. Maybe that makes a difference. I don't know.
It's really hard because, yes, you are supporting your local pub, which is important, and they do need you. However, you did lie. And what you should have said is you should have convinced your girlfriend at the time to say, well, you know, we can go to the zoo any day, but the pub has only got this thing on a bank holiday. We need to go there. And you would have had a lovely day. Everything would have been fine. So I'm sorry, I can't forgive you because you lied.
Fell off the back of a lorry. That's what I did.
Yes.
Brother from another gutter.
Well, I'm gonna hazard the guess that Budgie's girlfriend at the time knew what was going on, because who's buying that story that you're going to be driving a lorry all day Bank Holiday Monday and you've invited a friend to come along so he's going to spend Bank Holiday Monday going up and down the motorway. No one's buying that story, and I think she knew what was going on. They had a fabulous time at the zoo, and then it all worked out well in the end. Everyone had kids and grandkids and the big
just like that,
and a great story to tell, and a smart speaker at the end of it. So for that reason, I choose to forgive.
So how did you get the smart speaker? Well, I won it because I confessed to, remember that time. Anyway, does Budgie get your forgiveness? On the text, please, 61054. Start your message with Simon. 61054. Forgiveness, yes or no? Tonight's confession came from Budgie, who basically lied to his now wife. His friend lied to his now wife, saying that they were off doing some important lorry driving, but actually they were playing football in a drunken state. And Budgie ended up with a busted leg, 6 weeks off work. But until this moment in time, Mrs. Budgie is unaware of what actually happened about 3 decades ago. The people's verdict is in, and it sounds like this.
So unforgiven, says Tony in St Ives. I feel like Budgie's injury really was karma for lying to his wife in the first place. Not forgiven, says Jerry. I'm with Sister Susie on this one. Be sure your sins will find you out. But Drick says forgiven. Boys will be boys. What did he say about not being paid for this urgent job? Extra pay not received. Matt, I agree with you. His wife must have known.
So basically the one that agrees with you is the one that finishes that little
that's
kind of
how
summary.
it works. Very good.
Okay, so if you have a confession sort of lodged somewhere, you're not quite sure whether you should actually be admitting to it because it's remained a secret until now. You can be as anonymous as you like. We changed the names, places and areas and everything. So just let us know. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. It's 5:47. Let's bring you today's confession, which is a very nice thing. Go live to are you in the saloon bar or the public bar today?
I'm in my private bar upstairs.
Oh, my private bar.
Very
like
nice.
this.
It's very, very high end. Okay, so let's just see if we can wheel in.
Oh, there he is.
David Jacobs made it to your private boudoir. What are you selecting for us today?
Well, I thought it's Thanksgiving, so let's have a little celebration and maybe a little glass of fizz. You can choose champagne or English sparkling wine. We do some great ones. And maybe, you can add some orange juice if you want to.
Okay. Or just orange juice with fizzy water if you're not drinking.
If you're not drinking.
If you're not drinking.
Nice
Very good.
No
or
taste.
fizz.
So, thank you. Any excuse. Today's confession comes from Sam. Simon and the team. This confession goes back to my time specifically as a fresh-faced apprentice in a metal workshop in the late 90s. Before we start, I'd like to apologise in advance to anyone having their tea, as the content might be slightly unsavoury, but all will become clear. The year is 1998, and as a young man forging his way in the world, I took an apprenticeship in a metal testing workshop. The day-to-day duties generally included lots of milling, machining and heating up of various test samples, all fueled by copious amounts of Yorkshire tea. There were furnaces aplenty, and it was hot and heavy work. I was the youngest there by some distance, the rest of the gentlemen there being of the good old boys variety, all having 20 or 30 years apiece in the business, much, much older than me. Keen to make a good impression, I was like a whirlwind, rushing from one job to the next. One of my first jobs was to take the van and go around this large site and collect the large, heavy test samples. On this particular day, it was fantastically warm, and having on jeans and a t-shirt beneath my thick, fire-retardant overalls, heavy boots and gloves, I was soon generating quite a sweat. By the time, when I was loading the van by hand, as you can imagine, this was heavy work. Getting back to the machine shop, I nipped into the locker room for a quick wash before getting back at it. I was pleasantly surprised to find a hand towel already laid out on the edge of the sink, perfect for my needs. Naively thinking, what a great company this was to lay on the wash gear.
Yeah.
Well, I went to work. No nook or cranny was left undried.
No one did that.
I started with my feet, each toe in between, and I worked my way up.
Okay, you don't need any more.
All the sweatiest bits got
Yes, no room's done.
full treatment as I went
got
about
it.
giving myself a proper buffing.
Right.
I think that's the right word.
It is. It's fine.
Because that's what you use
Absolutely.
for polishing the silver.
Yeah, dictionary definition. But do move on.
Yes.
The small towel was doing the work of a big
Yes.
shower towel, I have to say, but I finished clean and dry, which could not be said for the well-employed towel, which was now very damp and, shall we say, well-used, shop-soiled, in fact.
Oh, no.
As I finished up, the door to the locker room burst open, and before I could ask where the used towels went, I was hurriedly dragged out to attend to a broken machine. Twisted metal and cutting teeth were everywhere, and the towel was soon forgotten as we made good our repairs. Feeling pleased with doing my bit and showing the old guard I was of some use, we headed to the locker room to wash for the break time. At the sink stood our foreman, Keith, or Big Keith as he was known, because he was called Keith and he was quite big.
Yeah.
He was a man of few words and of a sober disposition. He was having his wash before he sat down for a well-earned ham sandwich. He knew how to live, did Big Keith. I asked one of the old chaps, where do the company towels go after we've used them? Which brought a loud round of guffaws. No such thing, lad, I was told. Everyone brings their own towel, was his reply. And as he spoke these words, the truth dawned. At the exact moment that foreman Big Keith reached out for the towel, his towel, that I had so vigorously become acquainted with just a few hours before. To my horror, he grabbed the shop-soiled towel and began drying his hands, and then, I have to say, I'm afraid, dear listener, his face. The words, no, stop, don't use that, were in my throat, but didn't actually pass my lips in time to avoid the moist scene before me. Quite how he didn't realise the second-hand nature of what he was using, that it was certainly not in the pristine condition he had left it, is frankly astonishing. So in a way, it's his fault for not seeing the evidence of his own eyes. You see, it was Keith's custom to keep his towel out on the edge of the sink in readiness for wash time. Indeed, a few of the old boys had similar peculiarities and habits, and Keith's was widely known, except to myself, because I was, indeed, the new boy. I have never told anyone about the defiling of one man's hand towel back in the 90s, and although he will still be ignorant of the violation carried out on his person, I beg Big Keith's forgiveness, because I was a keen young lad, a little wet behind the ears, and a few other places that unfortunately I cannot mention just at this moment. Sam's Tale, Sister Susie live from the private bar.
Sam, well, I feel for you, because one, they should have told you if you needed to bring your own towel. So I feel like that should have been, in the manual before you started. But it's just, I think it's too disgusting. And I think you could have told him and you didn't tell him. And I wouldn't want anyone's dirty towel near my face. So I can't forgive you for that reason.
You would have thought you would just have noticed that, in fact, it had kind of other marks on the
Maybe he
towel.
had his eyes closed.
Yeah.
Maybe his eyes were closed.
Maybe. Brother from another gutter.
Well, I mean, I was definitely going to not forgive with all the nook and cranny talk, but I'm probably going to forgive, and for the same reason as Susan. It's the system. It's the system that's wrong. What's the point of having a communal bathroom where you leave your towels out? Because then anyone can use your towel. Surely you need a locker for your towel, and don't have some system where you're leaving your towel where it could be used by other people, unless maybe Big Keith was happy for other people. We don't know. Maybe Big Keith was an open-minded kind of guy. Like, no, please use
nothing
mine.
Nothing more.
Nothing
than a
more.
shop-soiled towel.
There's a shop-soiled towel all over my face. That's what I like, and for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Okay, so interestingly argued, I think. People's verdict, please. Do you forgive Sam, yes or no? On the text 61054. First word is Simon. Confession from Sam, who used Big Keith's towel in between his toes and so on. Anyway, Big Keith didn't notice. With hilarious consequences, people's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So Tommy in Chester says, Big Keith sounds like a scary bloke. I wouldn't want to mess with him. I don't think I'd have fessed up either. James in North Yorkshire. I agree with Matt and Susie. Why did Keith leave his towel out in the first place? And why did the company not tell Sam he needed to bring his own towel? I blame the company and Keith.
Blame the man.
Indeed. And Gemma in Tooting says, I'm sorry, but Keith rubbing his face with the filthy towel is just too disgusting for me. Ew, ew, ew.
E-W-E-W-E-W?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So kind of a split verdict. Anyway, Sam gets the smart speaker, and maybe you have a confession for us, in which case, send it in because we would love to have it. And if it's a good one, we'll use it. You get a smart speaker. Simon at greatesthitsradio.co.uk.